Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Cartel Hour, where we do live tastings and discussions of all kinds of spirits with the people who make them, use them, and enjoy them. My name is Cameron Stevens.
And my name is Seth Benheim. Together, we're covering everything from familiar bottles to rare and exclusive releases from near and far away. If it's distilled, it's on the podcast.
What happens when you make a deal with the devil? Well, John Rempe knows, as his bourbon series Blood Oath has consistently sold out upon each new release, including the most recent Pact 6. As a master distiller, he makes this pact directly with his consumers to pour his soul into each blend, creating something brand new while honoring old world bourbon. We also chatted with John about the relaunch and rebranding of the historic Daviess County that dates back to 1874, as well as explored the relaunch of the Ezra Brooks line with Old Ezra and its new 7-year age statement, all now under the Lux Row Distilling family. We're here to learn a little bit and drink a little bit, so grab a glass and let's enjoy. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Cartel Hour here at the Infusory. My name is Cameron Stevens, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Seth Benheim.
What's going on, guys?
Oh, man, I'm looking forward to this. We have a special guest today. Why don't you introduce our guest?
We got master distiller, master blender, the man himself, John Rempe from Lux Row Distillery.
Yeah.
How you doing, John?
Good. How you guys doing?
We're doing fantastic. I mean, look at the lineup we have in front of us today. This is it's going to be a good day. Let's put it that way.
John, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us a little background here.
Yeah, well, like you guys are saying, I'm a master distiller there at Lux Row. I've actually been with the parent company, Lux Co. out of St. Louis, but I've been with them since '98, so it's been over 20 years that I've been with them, and been their director of research and development throughout that whole time, working with all of our distilling partners throughout that time, doing a lot of traveling to different distilleries around the world, anywhere from working up in Canada making Canadian whiskey and vodka, or down in our tequila distillery, Destilador Gonzalez, making tequila, or here in Kentucky making bourbon, and then. We came up with the idea that we were going to build a distillery, and I went to David Bradshaw, our president, and Don Lux, and I told them I wanted to be really, really heavily involved with this, and they agreed. And so I was in the position where I was able to move from St. Louis to Kentucky, and I actually live right here on the distillery property now, and I'm here 7 days a week. And then I run
You live on the property. Where in relation to, so you walk to work, I'm assuming?
Yeah, absolutely. I walk to work every morning. Yeah, I probably have maybe a 300, 400 yard walk. Our distillery is located on a 90-acre farm right here in Bardstown. You wouldn't really think you're even in a city at all. And Bardstown's a small town anyway, but we're isolated, and we're just on a farm. So there was a little farmhouse here that we renovated right before we opened the distillery, and it's on the back corner of the property, and that's where I live.
Are there a lot of houses on the property?
There's this one, and then there's another one that we call the Old Stone House, which is a house that was built in 1806. That's got a lot of history. It's on the National Historic Register and everything, but that's right next to the distillery, right up close, right maybe 100 yards from the distillery, if that. But that's it. Then it's just all. We got 10 acres of corn planted right now, and the rest is we do maybe some farming for hay, and a lot of it's wooded area and a little bit hilly in the creek.
Amazing. Is the plan to eventually grow the crop portion, or is that just kind of something for fun because you have the land?
Well, we had originally just been farming it for hay every year, just to, we have a farmer that comes out and just uses the field and kind of takes care of it, so we don't have to worry about it. But this is the first year that I went to the farmer and I said, hey, I want 10 acres of corn, and then we're going to harvest that in the fall, and then what I'm going to do is make a couple small batches with the corn that we grew here, and then I'm going to do some
hell yeah,
some
future,
that's
awesome.
Like estate releases later on.
Now, are we talking straight classic yellow corn? You doing anything crazy like Jimmy Red corn or any of those things?
No, nothing crazy.
Starting with the classic.
Starting with the classic.
Well, what
Exactly.
I would love to know is like, what does the journey to becoming a master distiller look like? I mean, when was the first time that in your mind, what you think of the first time you actually distilled, whether that was something in your basement or having fun, or like, if it was on some professional equipment, like what's the journey like to get to this point as a master distiller?
I mean, really, like I was saying before, I started as director of research and development, working and distilling with all of our distilling partners for years, and just going and learning how to do it. And I think the first time I really did it was up in Canada when I was doing a wheated vodka up there, and that was on a column still and a pot still combined, and that was the first time. And just over the years, just going to different places and learning it, and then being able to come here, and we have got our little sister distillery down in Lebanon, Kentucky, which is about 25 minutes south of here, and they're a small little craft distillery that we had before we had this. So I went there and I learned a lot, on the craft side and the small scale side, which I think that's a bonus to be able to learn it on a small scale, because we had everything in just one room in this building, and you have everything there, and you can really get a grasp of exactly what needs to be done, and then then just upscale it to where we're at now at Lux Row.
And Limestone has their own distiller.
Yes, Steve Beam.
Steve Beam. Gotcha. So you work on all the other ones. And then the vodka you're mentioning, this is Pearl vodka, if I'm not mistaken. You guys have a lot of brands. I have a question about that at the end, but why don't we jump into our first tasting? Because we do have a lot to kind of sip through today as we come up with
We certainly do.
some more questions and stuff. So Cam, go ahead and grab that first glass. So let's talk about this brand,
Daviess County.
We're on the blue label. Yeah, we're starting with the classic.
Yeah.
This is the straight bourbon.
Yeah.
And I know the other two
96.
are 96 proof.
Yeah. They're on 96.
Yep.
Daviess County, that's a brand that we have owned for a while, but we just re-released it this year with a awesome updated packaging and a completely new liquid inside of the bottles. What we're doing is combining both of our mash bills. We've got our standard traditional rye bourbon mash bill, and then we've also got our wheated bourbon mash bill. And what we've done is we've combined them together. That's what you're tasting in the blue label one. That's just the Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey.
Equal parts.
Now it's about 75% wheat, 25% rye.
Gotcha.
After distilling, after aging, we dump the barrels, and then we blended 75% wheated bourbon and 25% of that rye-based bourbon.
Gotcha. So the mash bill may have, in the end of it, still a hefty amount of wheat.
Correct.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Wheat's more of the operative flavor
and
grain.
and initially I'm not getting any of the kind of
Rye
harsh
spice.
Black pepper,
Right.
This definitely leans towards the wheated side for me.
Cloudy marshmallow, sort of
Yeah.
really sweet nose. Not a major nose on this one, but I am getting a little bit of that vanilla marshmallow.
Yeah, I do. It's not as pronounced as some of the other wheated bourbons that we tasted. In fact, actually, it's really mellowed and balanced. I get a little bit of kind of charcoal, a little bit of light wood. I know that you guys, is this one also a char 3 barrel?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the body's excellent on it. It really just it sits in the back of your mouth when you're done. It really kind of lingers on that front, and that's actually, I would say that's one of the biggest strengths in this one, standing out.
It's got a great taffy sweetness at the start. When you first put it on your tongue, it's really got that taffy sort of saltwatery thing going on that I love. Can certainly tell this is a wheat. Has a lot of wheat going on. I think that explanation really explains.
Yeah, there's a grain. This one, there's a really pronounced graininess from the wheat, I believe, at least, coming out in it. And I think it kind of leads to that a little bit chewiness, the chewy viscosity on it too.
Yep, yeah. That's what I was going to say. That wheated bourbon, it lends to a more creamy mouthfeel, and like you said, it'll coat the back of your mouth and down your throat. You can feel that difference in viscosity a little bit.
It's really more in that sweeter dessert like.
Yeah, it's like a little caramel, a little vanilla.
I'm not getting too many baking spices, and I really think this has got a lot more of that. This is a great kind of like a sweet wheat. This kind of reminds me of 1792's sweet wheat a little bit. It reminds me of that a lot.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah,
That's pretty.
I'm at like a really solid B.
Yes.
There's nothing that's offensive about it whatsoever. It handles its heat nicely. Its mouthfeel is excellent. I really like that kind of grainy grippiness. There's just nothing that's popping. It's not necessarily making any bold statement, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But it is just, it's pretty smooth from start to finish. So that's where I land.
The mouth feels really where,
Indeed.
you know, this has got more going than that Ezra 90 in terms of mouthfeel, than that 1843 in terms of mouthfeel. Is there any age difference on this? Are these all 4 year? Are we going higher than that?
These are all 4 year.
4 year. Got it.
Great.
Now, I think what's interesting about what we're about to get into next, and tell us about what led you to choose these oaks, is that this next two in the brand of the Daviess County, you do something that you don't do with the Ezra or the Nicholson. And I love that you're doing it with this brand, which is a finished bourbon. So this next one is that French oak, the white label. Again, also 96 proof. And tell why French oak, why Cabernet, why those two oaks of all of the oaks out there?
Well, as you know, traditional, bourbon, it's white oak in America. And that has a component in there which are called lactones, which kind of lend to a little bit of a coconut flavor. You can smell it a lot more than really you can taste it. But when you talk about French oak, they don't have it. That oak does not have those lactones, so you lack that. So you're not going to get a real coconutty note out of it. But what you're going to get is a lot of caramel and toasted caramel notes from that French oak, and that's why I used it, and that's why I've used that on another product that we did overseas just a little while ago. But I'm a huge fan of French oak finishes.
Well, instantaneously on the nose, I get a lot more nose off this one.
Agreed.
I get like a rich vanilla bean, maybe even vanilla ice cream.
Yeah.
So it's not like vanilla extract.
Frosting.
It's like chewing on the bean itself, which is nice because it's a lot more of a complex vanilla nose.
This is that exact same whiskey we tried finished in French oak.
Yes. Now these are all that same blend of that 75-25, but the one's finished in French oak, and this next one's will be finished in Cabernet.
Now, two questions. How long is it finished in French oak?
About 6 months.
Okay. It has more of that wood that the other one was missing, I think. I get that.
Definitely does.
I work with French oak on Broken Barrel, and it really has that ability to bring that earthy, woody quality.
And there's a depth to it as well. I mean, there's one thing to sort of have that surface level kind of earthy wood note, and there's another to have it actually kind of flow through on the palate, like touch the tongue with that wood. And I'm with you. The barrel is coming through really, really nicely in this.
I am a sucker for French oak. It's spicier. It almost creates a pseudo rye feel. Knowing that it doesn't have any additional rye. This has more spice and more edge. I also get a little bit of a nice floral note as well. I don't know, like a tea type floral note that I really, really like. This is better than the last one for me. I think it's an easy B+. I think this is actually a really, really great sipping bourbon. Yeah, I really like it. Is this going to switch out? And I noticed on the label it says limited edition.
Yes.
So you're going to sub this out at a certain point in time and maybe come in with a new finish?
We may. Yeah. We've kind of left it open for that, basically.
Well, I think you're in charge of it, right?
Can you let us in on at least where your mind's at?
We love to break news on this show. So if you've got any news to share.
I honestly don't have any new news on Daviess County. I really don't.
It's virtually new. I mean, it came out when?
Just earlier this year.
This is
just a few months ago. We just had our releases back in early March, really.
This is a 2020 brand.
Yeah.
Well, so then I have an interesting question, I suppose, which is, how do you launch a brand in the middle of a pandemic?
That's very challenging. Yeah. We came out right before it. We actually had a release party in Owensboro, Kentucky, in Daviess County, Kentucky, right maybe a week or two before they shut the state down. So we slipped in right at the beginning of everything happening. And but yeah, I mean it's been really tough to keep it in people's minds and, to keep it out there. But we've been doing a lot of, a lot of stuff on, our marketing department's been doing a lot of great work on social, social networking, Facebook and
podcasts, stuff like that.
Yeah. And we've actually been doing some curbside releases here. We do about once a month on Fridays. And the last one we did was for one of our distillers collections, one of our Ezra Brooks distillers collection, but we also opened it up for people to buy anything that they wanted to in our retail store. And overwhelmingly, people were wanting the Daviess counties. It was amazing. It's awesome that it's actually picked up a little bit of a little steam, in spite of what's going on.
Are these available outside of Kentucky right now?
Yeah,
they are.
They should. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure exactly the distribution, but I know that it is not just Kentucky.
Yeah.
Well, they are on Cask Cartel.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely check these out.
Well, that's what I'm interested in is because it's initially you would think, man, that's going to be really difficult to launch a brand new brand just as people cannot get it in person, right. or it's very limited to get it in person. And but actually, I think that's such an interesting opportunity to bring something new to the market in a way that where you can actually leverage that online distribution. This is I really like this one. This one in particular really shines.
I'm still at a B on it only because I just smelled this one. And holy shit. Now, bias. And again, one of the things about
you can't just cheat and grab the next one and use it
For me, it's always about, and the reason I love this show, the reason I love doing these tastings, and why I recommend doing this at home for anyone listening is grab a bunch of the bottles. It's not about having two fingers. I love the Kentucky thing when they go 2 fingers this way in a glass or that way in a glass.
Right, yeah.
What kind of day is it? So watch the video podcast if you want to see what I just did. But the idea there is you put a little bit in the glass. I love to try 6, 8, 10, 12 bottles in a night, but it's not, heavy pours. It's more of a, I thought I liked this bottle. I knew I liked that bottle.
I like it against this or that.
I'm trying them together now. So, everything really is in context. You try something if you're living on an island, you're trying it, by itself and nothing else, you're not going to have that same reaction as you might have before something, after something.
Fair enough.
You have context. So for me, I wouldn't call it cheating. I'd call it sharpening the pencil on your notes. Because if the next thing you go, oh, this is an A+, and you try the next thing and it's better, you're like, well, was it A++? Like, where do you go from there?
I get you. I really liked the last one. So talk to us about Cabernet. Why Cabernet, and what you've been able to do with it.
Well, Cabernet, it's always been one of my favorite wines. And I travel to Napa all the time. I actually did my Blood Oath Pact 3 was a Cabernet finish. That was the first time I did a Cabernet finish on a bourbon, and I loved it so much. And I'll talk a little bit later about Blood Oath, but the thing with Blood Oath is once I do something, I never repeat it. It's always something different the next year. So it kind of saddened me a little bit that I couldn't, redo that. So I didn't redo that in Daviess County. I did it differently. This is the blend of the 2 mash bills, but I used Cabernet barrels again, and I think that it just blends absolutely perfectly with the flavor profile of the bourbon.
Yes, it does. This is fucking fantastic, man. This is good. This is surprisingly good.
Wow.
So this is where I like to argue that oak does so much of the heavy lifting when it comes to whiskey. It's what makes whiskey.
Absolutely.
The requirement. And when you finish a whiskey and you can turn from 3 of the same exact blends and mash bills and ratios to take this oak and then create this versus the other 2.
Indeed.
I mean,
these 3 are drastically different.
They really are.
I know it's the same juice, but gosh, they are just so wildly different, and I really, really appreciate that.
The oak is no joke. What kind of wine are we talking? What?
We're just gonna pass over your little joke right there.
Yeah, we're gonna pass.
Okay.
So, Napa Cab, are we talking about? Can we say the winery?
I can't say the winery. In the Blood Oath, we actually partnered with one of my favorite wineries, a small little boutique winery out there, Swanson Vineyards. They just do small little boutique runs of Merlots and Cabernets. But on this one, all I can really say is it's a Napa cab.
Okay.
Got it. Well, on the nose, you certainly. I get what's interesting to me is a lot of times when you have a wine finished spirit of any sort, you get in this instance you would get the Cabernet, right? You get just the raw juice. In this, I feel as though I get the finish of the wine itself in the finish of this bourbon.
Yeah.
It's a dual layered, especially on the nose, because it's easy to just say I smell grapes, or even I smell Cabernet grapes. But this is, I smell the entirety of the Cabernet on the nose, and that is really impressive to me.
Yeah, it has a beautiful, beautiful, almost tannic-like body. It really coats the mouth in all the right ways. It has a ton more viscosity than the first two. It's not astringent. It's not too sweet.
No, this gets into like leathery cigar type, really rich undertones. Yeah. Like I love that.
I get dried cranberry. I get a little bit of that red grape on the nose.
Little prunes,
well, yeah. I don't know if I get prune, because prune would be the sweeter version to me versus the cranberry.
Okay.
Which is, the cranberry is a little less sugar based.
It's tart. It's tart.
It's a little tart. It's a little more of that rich dark fruit, but dried dark fruit, because there's an earthiness in this that you found in the French, but not in the first one. In the straight bourbon. Man, I mean,
yeah, and this one goes actually so earthy that instead of going like, this is like out in the forest earthy. I really like it.
At another time, I'm gonna taste this against my Weller Antique for like a weeded and see. I'm gonna have one of the guys blind taste me on this, because this is really fascinating. I love what you did here, man. This is.
Well, I appreciate that.
Your love of Napa Cab has created a monster here.
It's come through.
I'm going to go A- on this.
I am too. Easy.
This is
no question.
Surprisingly good.
Well, I appreciate that.
Sorry, one thing I have to add, because that last sip, I finished it. One, it made me sad because it was my last sip, although we still have a bottle here. But two, chocolate. Oh my gosh, a nice, rich, dark chocolate. Not only is the chocolate in the actual bourbon, but chocolate, pair it with some chocolate.
I was just gonna say,
I would love to do
bite.
Almost like get a nice long pour of this and actually line up a chocolate tasting.
So now we're on this bottle, and this is probably my most. I kind of like had these other Old Ezras lying around from prior years, but more recently, when this came out, I kind of knew what I was looking for when this hit the shelves. I go, oh shit, Ezra's back. It went away. Now it's back, and it's back at 58.5%, 7 year. And I think when I bought it, it was $45. It's substantially gone up in price since then. I mean, you can see this thing around $100. Tell us about this project, the Ezra, when it went away, when it came back, what went into creating this.
Yeah, so this Ezra, I'll bring the bottle up front here. So I love this bottle, by the way. The whole package redesign is outstanding.
It's a sick bottle.
It's super clean and hits all of the right notes. You guys did a great job with that.
So, like we were saying before, you guys tried the Old Ezra 101 proof, the 7 year. That was the predecessor of this one here. We decided that we wanted to up the proof to more of a close to a cask strength offering. Update the packaging, but it's still 7 year plus bourbon. We still blend a little bit of older in there just to keep that profile to where we're wanting it. But the higher proof, and I'm always been a huge fan of higher proof stuff, especially after working for 20 years. I mean, when I taste stuff that's 80 proof now, I feel like I'm just drinking water. But up in the proof there, it upped the viscosity, the mouthfeel of it. It really brought out a ton of caramel and vanilla notes right now. So this one right here, being 7 year plus, we have guests come into the distillery, and I talk to them about the flavor profile of this one, and I see you're going to get a decent amount of caramel and some vanilla notes, and I explain why it's those notes start developing, starting at around, they really start developing starting at around 6 years. and they really kind of go up till about maybe 12 or 13, maybe 14 years, depending on the mash bill and where those barrels are in the rick house and the climate there. But after that, the barrel really starts kind of taking over a lot, unless it's a good. I found wheated bourbons actually are able to be aged a little bit longer than rye bourbons, but this one falls right in that sweet spot where you get a ton of that good caramel and vanilla development.
Yeah, John, while we taste this, first of all, my initial sip was absolutely fantastic. So I'm really excited to kind of talk through this. But what I would love to know from you is, as a master distiller, how do you think about tasting? And specifically, you know, it's one thing to taste a spirit in its quote unquote finished form, but along the way, what are you looking for? How do you think about actually sitting down on the glass, you know, in front of the glass and thinking, I want to go a little bit longer, I want to go in this direction, I want to blend this? How does your mind work on that front?
It's really difficult to explain. I'll just be honest. It's you start drinking and you start sipping and you know what you're kind of looking for. You know the notes that you're looking for or that you're hoping to find, and you start blending if you know to blend to those notes basically, and to blend to that profile. And sometimes it's a long process, because a lot of times when you're blending, you got to let samples sit maybe for a week or two, or maybe even a little bit longer, because once those flavors marry a little bit, that whiskey will taste completely different from when you first blended that together. But I mean, like I said, you just, you know, I always talk about balance, and that's also hard really for me to explain to people. But I know, you know, from my whole just experience in research and development with all different types of beverages, because I mean, I actually, you know, before my life with spirits and whiskey, I was in soft drinks and I was in fruit juices. And I always talk about balance, and I taste other people's products or even samples that I made, and I say it's just not balanced, and people will say, why? And I say, well, it's just not balanced. I just know it when I see it. It's there's not one thing that's overpowering the other. They're all, you know, coming together. It's almost like a synergistic effect where it's greater than the parts, and that's what, you know, with this one. And this is when we blend older barrels in with younger barrels too, to keep that flavor profile. You just know. You know it when you finally taste it. You know that it's it.
Well, as a master blender and also a certified food scientist, you know, you've got the credentials to be saying, you know, the flavors here are or are not balanced, and it makes, you know, all the sense in the world that coming from that background, you can bring that sophistication, that palate to, you know, this heritage brand that's been around for almost now it's 4 generations.
Right.
It's pretty phenomenal.
Seth, you've done, I think, 3 fist pumps now. You want to tell us what you think
when
about
when I do this, you know, I'll do 2 things. I'll hold the glass up if it's like, you know, I'm making, it's like a human emoji, right? Or vice versa. It's really interesting. You know, this is a bottle that, you know, it caught my eye when I saw it online, and I went out and picked one up last year. And then it also, at the end of the year, won a top 20 whiskey advocate. As the man responsible for this, you know, how did you feel when you won that award?
That's always an amazing feeling. It's really awesome to be recognized when one of your products, you know, get recognized like that. It's I can't really even say anything else. It's just a great feeling.
Did you drink this that night?
Oh, of course.
Have you or has the brand itself won that award or one of those awards before? Or is this the first time you guys picked up a top 20 whiskey advocate?
Oh no, we actually, our Rebel Yell 10-year single barrel one was.
Oh, that's right.
20 a couple of years ago also.
Yeah, we killed one of those with John Boyer from Blind Whiskey Review on YouTube. He's a YouTube reviewer as well, and he and I and Cam killed that.
I actually really liked the Rebel Yell.
Yeah.
This is exceptional. I don't even know where to start. I mean, it is symphonic in the way that it balances. There are some really nice baking spices and pepper. There is the salted caramel, little taffy, little bit of just I try to reserve this because it's such like an odd tasting note, but like the charred top of creme brulee.
Well, it's caramelized sugars.
Yeah.
You know, it's that
but
brown sugar.
But it's like the fluffiness, because there's like molasses, there's brown sugar, and then there's like specifically the top layer of creme brulee.
Well, we didn't talk about the mash bill here, but is this also that rye mash bill, that wheat mash bill, or a blend of the two?
This is that rye. That
rye comes through lovely. That rye comes through so lovely on this.
I was going to say it's certainly spicier from proof and from mash bill than the prior three.
It's not a high rye at all. I mean, it's
10%, right?
It's only 10%. Yeah, it's 78 corn, 10 rye, and 12 malt. There's actually 2% more malt in it than there is rye, but you know that rye is that's that flavoring grain. But it gives enough spice to balance out all the sweetness from that corn, because there's a ton of corn in this one.
Yeah, I think the higher malt always lends that little chocolate essence to it.
Yeah.
The question I have is, you started mentioning 6 to 12 years where the flavors come in. I know you have to put 7 on the bottle if it's the youngest operating whiskey. Is there older whiskey in this batch than 7 year?
There usually is a little bit of 8 or 9 blended in. Just we'll do that just to match the flavor profile that we're looking for.
Yeah. And how many barrels per batch on something like this?
I mean, it really depends. We don't have a set amount. It's not large at all. It may be only 100 barrels or so at a time that we're doing.
That's not terribly large, no. I know like Buffalo Trace, is about 40 barrels on a batch. So this is probably a little larger, but again, you don't nearly come out with as much as this as they do of the everyday Buffalo Trace. So, it's batch size is one thing, number of batches is another thing.
Right.
All I can say about this is goddamn. This is a monster. This is a solid A-, possibly an A. I think it's an A. It's an A because for me, this really does that proof. This takes everything we've tasted before it. All the Nicholson, the Rebel Yell, the Ezra Brooks, the Daviess County. It takes all of that and it does the best of all of those all in one bottle.
Yeah. This
is better than all of the other ones we tried. And I would, for somebody that's going to spend their money, pay for this one, because that's I want to promote that this is my favorite. So this is an A.
Yeah. Okay. And I too was waffling between A- and A. The only thing that was keeping me from an A is the fact that every other sip had the heat just distracted me a little bit from what I loved that was happening.
If you want a little more, I have a water gun there. I want to try it with a little water.
You want to try it with some water?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually,
I
drop of water.
Few drops, yeah. You grab that? Yeah, we got a little scientific water gun.
That being said, this is the accolade that I will give to this one. I could, if I was sitting down, with a pencil and a piece of paper and writing down my tasting notes, this would be the one where I would be like, guys, I need like a good 15 to 20 minutes to just list every little thing that I'm getting, because it's easily the most complex of what we've
symphonic, tasted. Yeah. Now here's a funny one, and this you're gonna love this, John. You went to University of St. Louis, and their mascot, oddly enough, is the Billiken.
Yes.
And, pop quiz, maybe you were not ready for this, but do you know what a Billiken is?
I think I did, but it's been so long since I've been there that I can picture it. I don't remember what it is though.
So I'll tell you, a Billiken is a mythical creature that is a figure of representation or the embodiment of good luck. And it's sort of, and I don't want to quote this wrong, it represents things as they ought to be. That's what a Billiken is. It's a mythical creature that is good luck and things as they ought to be.
From what culture or realm, or where is this Billiken coming from?
I didn't do that much research. I just
Harry Potter or something, or
thing,
okay? I knew it was like some mythical creature, but I didn't know.
I saw the word. I'm like, what's the mascot? I was like, oh, are you an Eagles guy? And it's like, no, it's a Billiken. I'm like, oh, what the fuck is a Billiken? So I looked it up. But what's really odd and almost symphonic about this bottle is that it represents whiskey as it ought to be. And for me, this is in a glass what I look for in a whiskey. It has complexity, depth, richness. It has spice. It has balanced alcohol. It has proof that if I want it on the rocks, I can do that. If I'm in that kind of a mood, if I want a Glencairn and I want to drink it, straight up neat, it's balanced at that level as well. If I add a little water, still new things are happening. That's why it's incredible. For me. That's why it's a Billiken for me. Okay. God damn it. I give it a B for Billiken. Okay?
How I would describe this is you buy different bourbons, buy different whiskeys, you come over, you have your different folks that enjoy different things, right? And then you bring over your snooty friends, and every one of your snooty friends likes a certain aspect of, you got your Scotch friend, you got your really, your super sweet bourbon friend, you got your you put this in front of every one of those people with some fantastic palates, and they're all going to find something to really love with it. It is just that complex and well-rounded. It's fantastic.
Even a snobby asshole like me, I would I would come in and be like, man, this is great.
I mean, you said it, not me, but anyway, I always like to say, look, this is a treat. It's really fantastic.
This is what happens when you start drinking at noon, man.
Yeah. Like the good stuff.
We're gonna take a bit of a transition here. We're gonna delve into a whole new world. I believe this brand has its own website, and you guys have done some serious work with this. This is the Blood Oath. What's, just very briefly, as you describe Blood Oath and what it takes to be part of this lineup for you guys, versus the other brands that follow that mash bill and those sort of regimented things. What does it take to be a Blood Oath?
So actually, I'll start out by just going back and talking about when we first were thinking about creating a new brand. It was about 7.5 years ago. It was myself and David Bratcher, our president. We were talking about creating a new whiskey, a new bourbon brand. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to create more of an experience than just, going out and sourcing or finding some old whiskey and throwing it in a bottle that looks nice and putting a high price tag on it, because, I mean, frankly, that's a little boring. So we wanted to create more of an experience. So what we've done is every year I blend in 3 different Kentucky straight bourbon whiskeys, and we do a limited release every April. We do a limited run, limited amount of cases.
How limited?
We start off with about 15,000 3-packs, so 45,000 bottles. And then right now we're doing about 17,000 3-packs on pack 6. I let them go up a little bit. They keep wanting to raise it because it sells out every year. And of course sales, once they want to keep raising it, but I keep saying we can't keep raising this and keep calling it limited. I mean, what are we going to sell? How many cases is the limit to where you stop saying that this is a limited release or a limited edition?
Sure,
so
yeah.
We're keeping it down to a reasonable level so we can still call it limited.
I think because you're blending 3 different kinds of Kentucky straight bourbons to make these, it does give you the advantage of being able to make more than, say, a single barrel limited release or a small batch limited release. And, it's all relative, right? 15,000 3-packs or 45,000 bottles is, more than a lot of craft spirits companies will release in a year.
Oh, sure.
Just given the size of, craft spirits companies being at that sort of, 5,000 9-liter case, which is 5,000 12-packs or 60,000 bottles. So your limited release is, 3/4 of, an entire, 92% of craft spirits are at that 60,000 bottle mark. Yeah. So your limited is, everyone else is nut, but not that that's a bad thing, but at the same time, when you're selling to 50 states and internationally, it does go quickly when you
It
spread
goes
that
very
thin.
quickly.
Exactly.
So I'm assuming you guys do, like, when you say it sells out, I'm assuming you do a big release party, or what does that look like when a new Blood Oath gets released?
We did release parties early on, the earlier editions. I traveled around. I think our first one was in New York, and then we did one in Chicago. We had big parties and announced the release. We did press releases and everything. But to be honest, really, when we announced that we were going to be doing this, the distributors were so excited that it almost sells itself when you tell them about the concept and what I'm doing. And every year, it's they can't wait for the new release and we were talking about before, 45,000 bottles. It sounds like a lot, but it really, in terms of, if you're not a craft, size company, if you're a normal, mid to higher level spirits company, that 45,000 bottles goes fast.
It's nothing. It's nothing in the
It's a
world.
blip on the radar considering your other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Every single account is crying that they didn't get enough bottles.
You probably sell that much Rebel Yell to a country like Japan on an
Right.
opening order. It's one of those things where it's all relative. But again, we do review craft on this show. We do review,
Right.
I would say this is somewhere in between crafting.
Yeah, we've had some like nano distillers on the show.
We've had people that do 3,000 cases a year, 4,000 cases a year.
Yeah.
And we're talking like 6-pack cases, not 12-pack.
Yeah, across their whole lineup.
And now you've introduced a 3-pack just to make it even more confusing. But we'll go with the bottle denominator. So we're drinking Blood Oath Pact 1 right now. We've got this bottle. I picked this up in 2018, as I said. This is your first attempt at the Blood Oath. Your name is on the bottle. It's right there in blood, or?
Yeah, right. No.
Yeah. You signed it in blood on the first one, and they copy and paste.
Hey, listen, man, the deal that with the devil you made, it was worth it.
Right. Yeah.
You sold your soul to make good whiskey.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the name. What does Blood Oath mean?
So Blood Oath, and the different packs. So every year it's a different pack. There's pack 1, pack 2, pack 3. But really, we wanted to kind of mimic like an old world, like Middle Ages type contract. And really what it signifies is that there's a contract between myself and the consumer that, trust me, and when I say trust me, I'll explain what I get, because I get these questions all the time. They want to know where the whiskeys are from. And I always say, I cannot tell you. And there's 2 reasons. 1, I don't want to tell you. And number 2, I can't really, because we've got NDAs from all.
You've got a pact, non-disclosure pact.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but the reason why I don't even want to tell people where they're from is because far too often bourbons in particular are judged before the bottle is even opened, based on the brand and based on the distillery where it was made. And I want this to be judged based on what's in the bottle. So you have to open the bottle and actually taste it to judge it.
So from a naming perspective, the name Blood Oath is chosen because of what reason? Like
a Blood Oath is usually like a pact between 2 people, and this is a pact between me and my consumers.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
got it.
You trust me. I appreciate that.
Right. Yeah.
The pact is between you and the people that are going to buy this from you and trust and make an oath or a pact that you've put the best you've got in these bottles. Yeah. And that's why you're charging the most for them.
So this is what I want to know. Now, I guess my first part of the question is, did you know that you wanted this to be a continuing series? And second of all, if you did know that you wanted this to be an evolving thing, how did you think about the first one in relation to where you wanted to go with the series?
Well, it's actually kind of funny. The first one, I just wanted to blend 3 different bourbons together, and this one there's a combination of 2 rye bourbon mash bills and 1 wheat bourbon in this one, and I think it turned out great, and it got great reviews, and it was well received. But then I wanted to do something a little bit different, and it actually made my bosses, the president and the owner, it made them a little nervous when I said I wanted to be a little more creative, because that's what I do. I mean, I was director of research and development for, I actually still am for the parent company for over 20 years, and I love being creative. I love doing something different. I love trying to make something that nobody's seen before. So I wanted to do a little bit something, like I said, something different. So on pack two, I did three bourbons again, but then I only took one bourbon and I finished it in a port barrel. Then I blended that back into the other three. And people always ask, why are you only finishing one of the bourbons? And I said, because I want to be able to blend that into the other bourbons at
The
just the
ratio.
right amount, so that you're not killing the profile of that whiskey. You're just adding a hint of something else.
So with Pact One, it's just the original 3 blend. Now
Yeah.
age on these whiskeys varies.
Age on this one, there's a 12-year-old rye, an 8-year-old rye, and when I say rye, not rye whiskey, rye bourbons,
Rye bourbons, yeah.
and then a 6-year-old weeder that I finished. Or no, I'm sorry, 6-year-old weeder I finished next year's.
And then the following year on Pact Two, you finish the weeder. Now,
Yeah.
are the blends of the bourbons in the Blood Oath all the same mash bill, whether rye or wheat, as the rest of the Lux brands?
No.
No. So you do have some
Yeah.
outliers, as you could say.
Yeah.
Now, is that the case with
That's one of the fun things I do with Blood Oath is I go out and I find other whiskeys. This isn't like our standard whiskeys that we're using.
including Pact One?
Correct.
So these mash bills are all strange.
Yeah. Right.
Well, it's very, very good. It's very, very good.
You can tell that this was blended, right?
You can tell it's older.
You can tell it's older. You can tell it's a little bit more well-rounded. It's sort of interesting because the last that we tasted, I said was symphonic, and I felt like flavors were popping out. This, I just absolutely love the depth of the character. I feel like it's not as wide ranging, but it's more wood and sweetness, caramel for sure, and it's really dialed into that realm. It's fantastic. I would unquestionably just say this is an A-. I would love to share this. This is a fantastic. What's interesting to me is, now, what was the year on this? When did it come out?
2015.
This is your first try at a new thing that's clearly become a phenomenon since that. And yet the very first attempt is very, very good. I feel like I would probably pick up the Ezra instead, but I really love the first one. And
Lucky for you, that's a lot easier to do.
Yeah, because I assume this is probably not available much anymore.
I mean, it's been gone for 5 years, so
secondary, if not tertiary market at this point.
More or less, yeah. I get a peach cobbler sort of flavor. I get a lot of peach and sort of really great dessert, sweet fruit notes. It's so well balanced. It has such a level of complexity for a
98.6,
49.3%. Yeah. So for me, this reminds me of, we did a show with Bardstown Bourbon and their Discovery series where they were blending some older whiskeys together, and a lot of those come out at around 60%, 120 proof. This to me has I'm trying, for a lot of people that haven't tried this, but maybe have tried these other whiskeys, I want to draw, some similarities. This has the sort of complexity of that Bardstown blend with that sort of intense level of flavor for a sub 100 proof, like an Elmer T. Lee. Okay. Yeah. So if you take a Discovery Bardstown and bring it down to a T. Lee proof, an Elmer proof, that's kind of what this bottle is. It's kind of the crossroads between those two bourbons for me, which is a really fascinating place because you have lots of rich depth, complexity, and you have lots of flavor at a relatively manageable proof. 100 proof is kind of where I like to start for me. So I'm at an A-. I mean, again, it's funny because it's a very different A- than the Old Ezra 758.5. I mean, that's a A-. Like,
Yeah, that's
go
a
buy
big,
this,
bad, complex.
right
this
now.
one's like super just
like, okay,
ugh.
if you were going to buy this in the tertiary market and say, I'm going to spend $500 plus for this, I wouldn't advise that. And that's why maybe it's like an A-, B+, because I wouldn't advise, if this was coming out tomorrow at 130 at the MSRP,
Absolutely.
A-, go buy it. It's
Yeah,
worth the
get out.
$130. Is it worth $500 or $600? No, go buy 10, Ezras for that price. Like, fucking
Yeah.
stock up and you'll be drinking good bourbon for the
Yeah.
rest of your days.
This is an interesting way to
You know?
describe Blood Oath 1. It's good enough that it is expected that someone would say, hey, you should do this again. You should keep going with this concept. And that's what I love. And so maybe that would be a really nice segue into, we skipped, let's see, 2 through 5.
2 through 5. Now we're on pack 6. And this
Pact
goes, anywhere from $90 to $300, depending on where you buy it.
So I don't know. Try to summarize the evolution in between. I know we don't get a chance to taste them right now, but where are we at versus where did we start?
All right, yeah. I'll just kind of go through all the packs real quick and just give
Please.
a little.
Great, yeah, lovely.
Yeah, so pack 2, like I was saying before, that's when I really started to get creative, and I did a port barrel finish. Then pack 3 was one of my favorite ones because I love Napa, and that was my first Cabernet finish, and that was out with Swanson Vineyards out in Napa Valley. And I traveled out there, I think 4 times that year, just making sure that the barrels were what I wanted and the profile that I was going to get. I just had to make sure. Also, I love going to Napa, so it was a good excuse just to keep going out to Napa.
Twist your arm, right?
Yeah.
Then to go to pack 4, where I kind of really, I did something a little bit different, where I actually took some of our Rebel Yell 10-year barrels that we were dumping for single barrel, and I took 40 of them, and I had them shipped to a cooperage in Louisville, and I had them disassemble every barrel by hand, take every individual stave, and I had them hand scrape the char off the inside of the stave. Then they reassembled the barrels, toasted the heads, and then toasted all the staves. They inserted a glowing hot red rod in it for about 45 minutes each barrel, and just toasted the hell out of the inside of the barrel. Then they put the heads back on, and then they shipped the barrels back to me. And then I aged one of the whiskeys in pack 4 in that, and that just you want to talk about like a campfire bourbon because it tasted like a s'more. It had chocolate, it had marshmallow, like toasted marshmallow notes. It was unreal. It was a great bourbon. Then move on to pack 5. Pack 5 was the Caribbean rum barrel finish that I did, and then pack 6 right now, is the.
So you're sort of. Can I?
Wait. Let's not gloss over the rum finish because that is completely out of the realm of the other ones.
Well, I have a
what
theory.
Inspired?
I have a theory here.
Oh, okay.
I have a theory. I have a theoretical question for you.
Yeah.
Do you test these things on a smaller scale with Blood Oath, and if they are fruitful or successful, as you would say?
Yeah, I'm always doing tests.
Make your way into the other brands, into the Daviess County or into some of the other brands you guys have. Oh man, that Cabernet was so good on pack 3. Let's launch a much larger batch size or barrel count of the Daviess County in that Cabernet finish because we know how fucking good Cabernet and bourbon go.
Yeah, I mean, I always am doing test batches, and I actually just got done with one. And I have my team, they're back in St. Louis. I can't, travel a lot and go back there. That's where I do all my blending and my aging is for Blood Oath is actually out of St. Louis. But they are constantly sending me samples. But that's one of the main things that I have, barrels with different things and just trying and testing things out and seeing if it's going to pay out or not. That's one of the, the fun things. Blood Oath is actually the funnest thing that I do here.
Yeah. Oh, I can't I wouldn't guess otherwise.
Here's the funny thing. I want to give a congratulations to you for getting the opportunity for this, but I almost want to give more congratulations because as you expand as a company, it becomes a little bit riskier to experiment. And whoever ultimately gave you the sign off, the creative freedom to make this and keep it going, that's who I applaud, because that's where the consumers win. That's where you give somebody who has a little bit more of an individual vision.
When you let John loose.
When you let him loose, go have fun.
Things like this happen.
And I feel as though that is when you let an artist at leash at work. And I love that. And this is more, not only congratulations to you guys, but more of a just letting other brands know, give people a chance to shine. This is clearly your child. This is clearly something that you've poured your heart and soul into. It's exceptional that we've gotten to taste this far, and I really hope we get to continue to see. Let's get into double digits.
Because this is really phenomenal. I'm at an A- on this. You get a lot of tart fruit notes, really rich complexity. We didn't talk about it, but Blood Oath 6 is a cognac cask finish. Now, again, my main question really is, are you finishing one of the 3 whiskeys blended, or are you finishing all of them in the cognac cask?
Always just one.
Always just one. So every time you do a Blood Oath, it's a hint of a finish blended back in. So you get 2/3 bourbon and 1/3 finished bourbon.
Roughly, yeah. It always changes every pack. But the one thing that I always want to make sure is that I'm not killing the whiskey with the finish.
Right.
I hate when I taste finished whiskeys and sometimes you can't even tell it's a whiskey.
Let alone a bourbon.
Exactly. I feel as though you're introducing the right amount of a finish to add complexity without changing sort of the core. That's what I like about this. I know this might be kind of crazy to say. I actually like Blood Oath 1 just slightly more. This is really, really good.
I would give Blood Oath 1 a 93. I would give this a 91.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this is a little tart. It's oddly tart. It's very almost sour and spicy, and it really puckers the tongue. It puckers the mouthfeel in a way that Blood Oath 1 kind of almost expands the mouth and kind of coats it in a very, very different mouthfeel.
What I give a lot of credit to Blood Oath 6 for is it is a statement whiskey. It comes out shining with what it is. And
it still has to be an A- because you can't get Blood Oath 1 to save your life. So, if you're stuck with Blood Oath 5 and 6, you can find those two.
Yeah, exactly.
You're still talking A-. You're still talking well worth $100+.
These are absolutely fantastic. And like I said, it's clearly the vision of a single person. I almost want to say it's like a movie where you can see a great director who's had their vision dumbed down by too many cooks in the kitchen, whereas this is clearly letting you shine, John.
Creative control.
Exactly. And you're doing some fantastic stuff, and I really, really like it.
So, John, I've got some questions for you. Luxco's got a lot of brands, and my main question as the master distiller and master blender is, are you more involved with some brands than others? Are there brands you don't really touch, like maybe Limestone or?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And right now I used to be involved with a lot more brands than I'm involved with now. We've got, like we were talking about before, our Pearl Vodka. We've got our Salvador Margarita lineup, and we've got our Aero cordials, where you're talking peppermint schnapps and triple sec and all the cordial lineups. Whereas right now, moving away, I am probably 90% involved with just our 4 main bourbon brands.
And of the bottles that you guys produce in those 4 major brands, what are your top 3 in order? Top 3 brands.
Damn, that's a tough question, man. You're making them lay it down on the table.
Put it out there.
Top three bottles or brands?
Bottles themselves. You have to choose.
You could say pack 1, 2, 3, or you could say Daviess this, that,
This is
that.
basically saying pick your favorite children. And I appreciate how excruciating this question is.
Feet to the fire, man. I'm bringing the iron. Feet to the fire. Top 3 bottles in order.
Top 3 bottles in order. I would say Blood Oath Pack 3, and then I would go Pack 6. And then number 3 would be Old Ezra 7.
So number 1 is Pack 3, number 2 is Pack 6, number 3 is Ezra.
Yes. Yeah.
My last question for you, John, is
tell
us a quick story about the first time you ever had alcohol.
Oh wow.
Think back.
I'm not even sure when the first time I ever had alcohol was.
First drinking story,
I actually do remember this. This is probably 1972, maybe 73. Okay. But I can still remember this because I was a young child. My parents would have, this is early 70s. My parents would have parties over, and and everybody would be sitting there drinking. And I remember sneaking around behind one of the chairs where people were just sitting there, and there was a table and there was a beer on there. And I remember I grabbed the beer and I drank it. And I remember just people yelling and screaming because they thought I was going to get sick. But probably a lot younger than most people claim. But I can still actually remember that. So that was.
Do you remember what beer it was?
I think it was a Hamm's, to be honest.
Okay. That's funny.
Well, John, I mean, this was a fucking blast because this is an
incredible treat to have your name on the bottles of some of the things in front of us. This is fantastic.
I think these kind of really define the Lux Row range for me. I'm gonna go
there you go.
One in there. I want to throw that one in there because I really liked it. So, John, what do you want to leave people with? And I say that, look, you represent a lot of brands, but what do you want to leave people with from the aspect of you as your creative vision for all of the things that you touch?
Oh, wow. That's a heavy question. What I want, it's kind of like the whole philosophy of the Blood Oath is it's the new experience. I want people to be able to experience something new, not just the same old. That's really that's in my heart. That's really what I want people to get out of what I'm doing is to have a good experience, not just drinking whiskey. To be honest.
Do you have kids?
I have 2. Yep.
How old are they?
They are 24 and 21.
So they're not too far. They're both drinking age. They're both drinking age. So are they getting into the spirit of things, pun intended?
Yeah. My son, who's the oldest one, Hunter, he's more of the whiskey guy, and I send him bottles every once in a while whenever I get a chance. And but my daughter, Sophia, who just turned 21 in March, she actually on her birthday, it was quarantine birthday, and so she was back in St. Louis, and I talked to her, I think it was just this past weekend where some of the restaurants opened up back there, and her mother took her out, and she said that I think, this is, end of May now, and her birthday is March 23rd, but she said she finally got to order a drink at a bar.
Hell yeah.
Well, the best thing to be is a master distiller. The second best thing to be is the child of a master distiller.
Or best friend or podcast interviewer or, we'll drop your name when we come back to Lux Row.
Well, listen, John, we are so happy that you got a chance to come on the show with us. This is sincerely a treat.
I learned a lot. I think there's a lot more that goes into these bottles than meets the eye. And to hear it from you and to hear it on this podcast has really been a treat for me because that, even just the Blood Oath, man, that 1/3, finished. Wow. Like the thought process that goes into that. You really have a sophistication when it comes to your approach to blending, your approach to what goes into these bottles is really phenomenal. So
this is really cool.
The work you've done is nothing short of exceptional. Really,
I appreciate it. This has been a blast.
Yeah, let's Let's see what happens for the rest of the day. It's like 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I know.
Go back to work.
Yeah.
Right?
right.
Something like that. Well, cheers, John. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers.
John, thank you so
All
much.
right. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Cameron and Seth here. Just a few more things before we wrap up. First, you can always head on over to cartelhour.com for the show notes, which will include links to all the spirits mentioned and, of course, consumed on the podcast.
Absolutely. If you're interested in purchasing any of the spirits mentioned on the podcast, go ahead and click any of the links to be taken directly to those spirits or visit caskcartel.com. They are America's largest online premium spirits marketplace and have been featured in Rolling Stones magazine, Men's Journal, The Wall Street Journal, Forbes, MarketWatch, and many others.
Yeah, they are awesome and super mobile friendly too. They're a fantastic resource to search through different types of spirits, and their platform is easy and straightforward. If you don't love driving around to every single liquor store in town and hoping they have what you're looking for, Cask Cartel is certainly the best e-commerce spirits platform I've personally come across.
Couldn't agree more. And you can find them on social media at Cask Cartel, and you can find us at Cartel Hour for the podcast, where you can find information about upcoming episodes and live tastings at the Infusery.
And speaking of those live tastings, for those living in or visiting the Los Angeles area that are truly intrigued, if you want to drink along with us, we would love to have you come and enjoy an evening at the Infusery to drink through a carefully selected assortment of spirits.
We offer custom flights and have a robust library of over 700 spirits to choose from. Visit our website for more information on how to become a member of the Cartel Club.
And if you're a spirits brand that would like to be featured on the podcast, please email us or send us a direct message on Instagram.
Thank you everyone for listening, and remember to always drink responsibly
And in good company.